made it to Chirohustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. Before we dive into this powerful episode, please remember to subscribe to our channel and give us a 5-star rating on iTunes and continue hustling. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Chiropractic Rocks, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, doTERRA, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, and Invisired. Let's hustle.
Hey guys, welcome to episode 372 of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I am your producer, Luke Millette, and here's your host, James Chester.
So today we have the opportunity of interviewing Dr. Jeffrey Slocum, and if you want to hear the story of a 4th-generation chiropractor, stay tuned. Welcome back. This is another episode of the Chiro Hustle podcast. I am really excited for this episode. We got Jeffrey Slocum coming in from Bangor, Maine. I'm coming in from Grand Junction, Colorado on the Western Slope, where I used to say where nobody lives. And I came here and moved here because I wanted to hear the birds chirp. Anyways, Chiro Hustle. Before we jump into this one, Dr. Jeff, as you said in your bio, as your patients, you're most known as Dr. Jeff. I just formally call you Dr. Jeffrey Slocum. But before we jump into this, I said the big why. Why do we do what we do? Well, number one, we support free speech in chiropractic. We think that that is absolutely essential in today and going forward. We also protect the sacred trust. If you don't know what that is, go and do a search for that. Put BJ Palmer Sacred Trust and just find out what that means, because it's very important to chiropractic. Maybe some chiropractors forget about that too. But then we do support subluxation-based chiropractic and innate intelligence and universal intelligence, that when a person gets adjusted, it connects the person, the physical, to the person, the spiritual. And with that being said, welcome to the show, Dr. Jeffrey.
Thanks, buddy. Nice to see you, Jim.
Yeah, I was just off camera telling you how big of a fan I've been of yours over the years. And I just really admire what you do. And you know, you said this is your 30th year, man.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. 2 days ago, 29 years ago, I graduated from Chiropractic College. So I'm 2 days into my 30th year of practice. It's crazy. It's crazy.
But no one's counting, right?
Well, no, you know what? I actually don't count because it matters. In that way, to me, I was like, I couldn't believe when over half my life I'd been in practice. And now I'm far beyond that, right? Because, you know, I look like I'm a teenager, but I'm not. I've got a couple years, couple adjustments in these pisiforms right here.
So I read through your bio, and you got 11 family members as chiros. Has that increased yet?
No. My oldest daughter was thinking about it, but you know what? Quite frankly, you know, she was looking at it. Should I do it? Should I not do it? And I said, listen, if you're not super passionate about this, go and get your license is an absolute slog. And I would never want anyone to do it if they didn't have a deep passion, you know, and just want to serve in that way. Because, you know, Jim, there's too many people, I think today especially, that burn out in this profession because they weren't passionate about it. They just, some career counselor told them, hey, you can make a bunch of money being a chiropractor, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, you know, she's been adjusted her whole life. She's lived a chiropractic centric life. She's, you know, she understands the philosophy. I just didn't get a sense that it was going to be the right thing for the right fit for her. And you know, we were right. So who knows? My son's 15. He might end up doing it, but he wants to be a game warden at this point. So we'll see.
Well, it's cool to catch up on family stuff, man, and to see direction that people are going. You know, I can't tell you the amount of times that people are like, hey, Jim, why don't you become a chiropractor? I'm like, hey, guys, would it make sense if I pulled myself off the front lines doing what I do for the profession and went and slogged through 7 years of education?
Right.
Probably not. So no, I mean, what are we best positioned for, right?
There's a lot of different ways to serve humanity, especially within the chiropractic model, right? So education is so important, Jim, and you've got that nailed down. I mean, you're reaching the masses with a message that we can't compete with drug ads, radio, television, newspapers, magazines that are all pushing people into that sick care, allopathic, symptom-based, sick care model. So thank God you're out here, man. How many episodes is this?
You're 372.
372. Yeah. So you're well on your way to 1,000. You probably reached millions of people with your message.
We have, man, and that's just it. Is grassroots will always win, and if somebody's consistent, they just stay in their lane and do something really well for a long time. That's how people become champions of the world. Is they do one thing and they do one thing really well, and I love that idea because what were we talking about before we jumped on here? Just never give up.
Yeah. Well, and you know what? Your broadcast is so aptly named chirohustle, because since I've known you, you've got hustle, 3 layers deep in your cells, man. I mean, you don't have mitochondria, you have hustle-chondria.
Yeah, that's really funny. So let's just encapsulate this because, people that have known you for decades, they might have not remembered your story. So let's talk to your patients, your family, your friends, your colleagues, and remind them your story. Like where did it all start?
Well, it's interesting, so it started basically early in 1968. My parents were no, I'm kidding. So, we all know how I started, but no. So the chiropractic thing is that, like you said, I'm a 4th generation chiropractor. I'm the 11th member of my family. So quite frankly, I grew up in a world where I got adjusted every week, at least once a week. Just that's what we did. We went in to see my dad and we got adjusted, and then I went to seminars with my parents. I hung around with chiropractic families and chiropractic kids, and that's just the world I lived in, right? We didn't go to I've never been to a pediatrician in my whole life. I've maybe seen a medical doctor 6 times in my life, but I've been adjusted consistently from the time I was born to this very day. So I guess it just was natural. Now, I didn't know I was going to be a chiropractor until, I graduated high school, and I played a lot of soccer, and I chose a school where I knew I could play. I didn't want to go ride the bench. I wasn't used to that. I was used to playing soccer. So I chose a small school in New Hampshire, went for a year, realized that, soccer was fun, but it wasn't going to really be my career. So I decided to move to St. Louis and go to chiropractic college. My brother was out there. He was in his, I think, 8th try or 6th try at the time. So I lived with him and went to get my undergrad. It's interesting, Jim, is that when I graduated from chiropractic college, went back to the elementary school that I went to school at, that my children were at, they had all of the classes from the history of the school had tables set out where kids had written stuff. So in 6th grade, I wrote my future biography is that I was either going to play professional soccer or practice chiropractic. Interesting, right? I didn't even remember writing it, but it was in the works way back then. So
yeah, I was at the gym this morning. I was talking to my partner who I lift weights with, and I was like, "Do you have an avatar?" Because he runs a restaurant. He just opened it up, and pretty awesome guy. But I was just like, "Do you have an avatar? Like, who do you guys serve, and who do you want to serve?" He's like, "What's that?" But I think that I said it's for you to like model who you want to attract to do business with, and if you don't do that, you don't know like where you're going. You're just anyways, but I think that when he does that and he goes in the future and looks back on that, he'll be thankful that he actually did that exercise, even if he doesn't like think it's important.
Yeah.
Because when you do things, like you said, when you write it down, that's why every year we should always write a letter and send it to ourselves.
Yeah.
About like where we want to be like the next year. So write the letter, mail it, send it to yourself, and open it till a year from then. And then open it up on that year and see what the heck you said that you wanted to accomplish on that year.
Yeah, so my partner, one of my best friends and one of my long-term business partners, Dr. Rock Moran, he runs a practice in Bath. It was my first practice. We can get into that a little bit later. I'd love to chat about what we can do as chiropractors for other chiropractors. But Rock actually wrote out. He worked with somebody and he wrote out his future life. And he wrote it out as if it was 10 years out. But having written it, he looked back at it 12 or 18 months later, and he'd accomplished most everything he'd written about. And it was very, very pivotal for him. He just he's done it ever since. Every year he sits down and he writes out his life. I don't know if it matters necessarily if you're writing it 10 years in the future or 10 months in the future, but writing it down, it cements it in our brain.
Well, I've even done one more neural hack is I have a recording of myself talking about my 1 year targets, my be do have, my personal mission statement, and my highest life values. And I listen to that sucker every morning as a recording.
Nice, nice. Well, I've often said, and sometimes I live it better than others, that what's not written, reviewed, and revised will not materialize. Right. So you got to do it. Write
Uh,
it, review it, revise it. It'll materialize.
I like that. So let's turn into the idea of marketing a bit. Because I know that a lot of times you said some people get into the profession and they have a struggle because, whatever reason it is, it could be headspace stuff, could be adjusting skills, whatever it is. But if somebody wanted to follow advice from you from 30 years of being a practitioner, what has worked and what hasn't worked with marketing?
Okay. Yeah. So, marketing, sales, I look at it all the same thing. We're in sales. I mean, if we're alive, we're selling, right? That's just the way it goes. If you're in a relationship, you're selling. If you have a family, you're selling. If you're, here's the thing, Jim, is that I think the most important part about marketing is be genuine, right? You better own it if you're going to sell it. So for
Mhm.
me, that's what I learned over the years. And what we've always done with our practices, always, is look at, can we engage our community in a way where we're sharing a message, sharing a concept, sharing a lifestyle that supports their best self. So
Amen.
chiropractic is always it's always been about, what do I own in chiropractic? Early on in practice, I didn't own chiropractic the way I own it today. So my message was a little bit different. My delivery was a little bit different. And my practice was a little bit different than it is today. I did stuff in my practice 30 years ago that I haven't done in 10 or 15 years now, right? So public speaking was a big thing. We did dinner classes. So one of the things that we did for years and years and years in our practices is that all new members, before we would recommend a care plan for them, they came to a dinner event of ours. So they came in, we did a consultation, we sent them out for films, and we would invite them to a dinner. So we had dinners every week, and we had anywhere from 6 to 12 people that would come to the dinner. And we did a healthcare class. We did a report of findings at dinner, bought them dinner, had some fun. It wasn't a button down, tie on event. It was just us being real, having some fun, sharing some ideas that when you get this, you really have somebody when they're sitting there and they're eating, and the next thing you know, nobody's eating anymore and they're looking up at you and you see the light bulbs over their head. You just made a difference in their life, right? Now, you don't know what decision they're going to make yet, but you created a bind for them. And I think it's important you create that bind, because for somebody to be successful in a chiropractic lifestyle means that they have to disconnect from that allopathic understanding that was ingrained in their system from the moment they were born. I mean, let's face it, from the moment people are born, they put freaking antibiotics in their eyes, right? And every time they don't feel good physically or emotionally, it's here, take this or take that, or we need to go see this doctor. And so we have to bind people up with a different concept that challenges their belief system in a way where they can make a different decision.
Yeah. You know, to follow up on a lot of what you just said there, I mean, I have a really big question, but before you get to that, um, the idea of the antibiotics in the eyes, like you said, I had a buddy of mine that started out with me like 5 years, 6 years ago now, that was helping me do some marketing stuff. And he had a little girl, and he was asking me about this big problem that we're all experiencing right now is taking shots. He's like, "What is your take on this?" I'm like, "Man, do what's best for you and your family, but I wouldn't do it for my kids." And if I don't have kids, but I was like, do what's best for you and your family. And he's like, well, what about the stuff that they do to the eyes? I'm like, I don't know what the heck that is, but I wouldn't do it to my kids. So anyways, he went through, had his children. He has 2 now. Um, Followed my lead. I connected him with Sherry Tenpenny,
Yeah.
and he started doing some his own development of ideas based on his own development of being a dad, and he chose not to do that stuff. So I tell people to do whatever they think is best for them, like make choice on your own, but I wouldn't do it for my kids. So if that has any weight in it, it may have. But you said x-ray, and I know this is kind of a controversial topic. I don't know why,
Not with me.
but I know. But why would people decide that that's not a good thing to have a radiograph of like the spine to see what's going on for a diagnostic purpose, or to see how to best deliver care to somebody?
Well, quite frankly, Jim, is that I've done x-ray on nearly every single person I've seen in my practice in the 29 years I've been in practice. Not a lot of children, unless children have a history of some type of trauma or anything, but on all adults. And here's the deal. An x-ray shows us the history of the spine. And what we know, and this is how I practice, the core foundation of how I practice is that structure affects neurology, neurology dictates physiology. Okay? There's no two ways about that. You can't parse that out any other way. Plain and simple. If you've got an instability structurally, you're going to have a compensated nervous system. If you have a compensated nervous system, you're going to have a physiology that goes astray. So it's what's called Dr. Lisa Bloom from New York Chiropractic College actually developed a very good neurology program that talked about fixation degeneration. And that plays into effect on how mechanoreceptors influence the nervous system and how that affects autonomic nerve function, motor nerve function, circulatory patterns to the discs, the cartilage, ligaments, tendons, and how that causes a breakdown in the spinal tissue by increase of calcium and collagen development. So it's funny, I get radiology reports. I send everybody to the hospital and I get radiology reports. And these radiologists will write back on the report that somebody has a normal amount of arthritis for their age. Craziest thing you've ever heard, right? It's so ridiculous. So, and I'll sit in front with one of my practice members and I'll say, look, I'm going to tell you something right now, is that I don't give these radiology reports much. I don't really take them. I want them to find, if you have pathology, I want to know it, because I look at how the relationship of the spinal tissue has to itself, to the region, to the whole. And I say, but I want to let you know is that radiologists write things like this all the time. And I say, okay, so they're saying you have a normal amount of arthritis for your age. You see here, and I point out C5 and C6 with mild to moderate arthritic change. And I say, look at this one. This is normal, and this one's normal, and this one's normal. Which one's older? And they're like, what do you mean, which one's older? And I said, well, this is normal arthritis for your age, but these are healthy. Which one's older? And they're like, well, they're all the same age. And I said, exactly. So age has nothing to do with arthritis. It has to do with function in time, but not age.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession on the world's #1 chiropractic podcast. This episode is sponsored by Imaging Services, Chiro Health USA, Chiro Moguls, Chiropractic Rocks, Pure Chiro Notes, Titronics, doTERRA, Sherman College of Chiropractic, New Patients in a Box, the Influencer Authority Podcast Training, and Invisired. Let's hustle. And I think arthritis is just a fancy word to tell people that they have degeneration of their spine. Like, I get it. Like, there's things that are happening, but the meat of this was some bozos are out there thinking that x-rays shouldn't be utilized in chiropractic offices. And I just think it's blasphemy when I hear that. I'm like, who is the policymaker on this? Who's making the decision? Who's the above down saying that this is the direction that we should be going through? Like,
well, and this is why, Jim, I believe that they're playing to the insurance companies and they're playing to the medical establishment. And ultimately when you hang around medical people or insurance people and they say, hey, why would you need to take an x-ray when a couple adjustments, they're going to feel better? Or you can get them out of pain with a couple adjustments. Why would you need an x-ray? Well, that's not chiropractic, in my opinion, right? Now, that is one maybe small phase of chiropractic, is how an adjustment affects our subjective experience. But that's just the tip of the iceberg, right? So, I mean, a monkey can adjust somebody's spine, stimulate mechanoreceptors enough to override nociceptors before they hit the cortex. That's all pain management does. But it doesn't change that structural, neurological, physiological pattern that's set up for decades. It takes a heck of a lot more to unwind that pattern and teach the brain a better relationship to the body. So, I mean, X-ray is a great tool, and I don't practice without it because I want to know the history of that spine. I want to know where there's arthritis, how many joints it's affected, how severe it is, because that tells me how long the body's been remodeling that structural system based on that disrelationship that the structure has with the neurology and what it's told the physiology to do in response.
And then guess what? This big word, symptoms happen.
I mean, dude, I have seen the most wrecked spines on people that feel pretty darn good. And I've seen people that are absolutely destroyed symptomatically and their spines look pretty great, right?
Mhm.
So I don't do them this is what I tell people, Jim. When they're sitting in my office, doing my consultation and making my report of findings, I let them know is that I won't talk to you about your symptoms much because how you feel does not dictate how well you're functioning. I'll look at objective, measurable signs, and that's how I'll base my recommendations for you. So if you
Amen.
think that, my job is to make you feel better, you're wrong because that's not why I'm here. And that hopefully that's not why you're here. So I say I don't lack empathy. I don't want you to be suffering, but I'm not doing my job if you don't function better because of the work that we do together.
Well, I just to take a couple pages back, when you don't do it the way that chiropractic does it, it's not chiropractic anymore. It's physical medicine. And chiropractors, they practice subluxation based chiropractic, which is find it, fix it, leave it alone, like Gonstead would say. And I think that when we think about the type of care that a medical agenda or an insurance agenda wants to produce, it's not chiropractic. They're not living within the guidelines of chiropractic, and they want chiropractic to live within the guidelines of what they think is right. Well, then they should do a whole different subset of care and leave chiropractors out of it. And it's like, all right, cool. We're going to do this and we're going to call it whatever, but it's not chiropractic. But
I think it's actually called osteopathy.
there you go. There you
Right.
go.
So
So now that we've established the truth of why X-ray matters, which I really appreciate you getting granular with me. Let's I know we have about 9 minutes left, 8 minutes left of the interview. So let's go a little bit lightning on some questions. Um, where's the profession going? Like 20 years?
you know what? Jim, I don't know. It's going to go wherever it goes, and I don't think that there's any one individual that can control that. I really don't. I think that the best we can possibly hope for you with chirohustle and what you're doing is reaching chiropractors and lay audience. Hopefully, some young person hears one of your chirohustles and hears one of your chiropractors speaking and decides to go to school for a reason that is going to be meaningful for the profession and for the public. I think chiropractic colleges, I don't know. I'm glad if you ever said to me, Jeff, I'm going to pay you $10 million to be a president of a chiropractic college, I'd say, you know what, I'll make it on my own because I wouldn't want to have to deal with all of the bureaucracy that goes into running an institution like a chiropractic college. So I try not to be too judgmental about that stuff. One of the things I can say is this, Jim, if chiropractors keep treating young, new chiropractors the way we have in the past, we're not going to be in a very good place. In my opinion, every single practicing chiropractor today should be hiring their next partner, not an associate doc, right? So my model, and I'm on my 5th practice now, my model has always been I hire my partners, my future partners. And I give my my associate docs that are trained to become owners, I give them a chance to earn ownership and buy me out of practice. And it's win-win-win all the way around. I've got 3 practices now. Actually, I had 4 practices down south that are all owned by people other than me, right? I did my time there. I made great money there, but now they're raising families. They're buying homes. They're sharing the message with young students. They're going out and doing talks in their communities. They're building legacy lives for themselves, because I realized early on that if I wanted to have the kind of impact I wanted to have in my family's life, in my communities, and in chiropractic, I needed to be able to raise people up to take over for me and give them an opportunity. But too many chiropractors are looking for associates. How much is the associate going to make me? How does it serve me? Right? Associates come in, they practice for a couple of years, learn everything that they think they need to know, and then they have a bad taste in their mouth because they weren't treated fairly or weren't given an opportunity, and it's this revolving door practice. And then you get somebody that's 30 years into practice, and they're like, now I'm stuck. What the hell do I do? I don't want to practice anymore, but I've got this reputation. Nobody's going to come work for me. It's bad. So my thing, chiropractors out there, hire future owners. Replace yourself. Train your associates so well that they can step in and you can step out.
Yeah, I really like the formula. And I think that's what we do is we hire partners, and we bring people on that we want to see become better. And we offer our resources to them and allow them to create their ideal life, which I think is brilliant. Let's talk heroes. Who have been some of the people inspired you? I know you come from 11 family members. You're the 11th, but do you have any heroes or anybody that you look up to that you'd like to mention today?
Well, here in this picture right here behind me, that's my great-grandfather, my grandfather, and 3 of my great-uncles. The picture's taken at Logan College of Chiropractic in 1947. My dad just passed a couple months ago. He was a big mentor of mine. I've just been around, not even just chiropractors, Jim. I couldn't even. I'm such a student of stuff. I could say Jane Goodall. I'd love to sit down and talk to Jane Goodall because of the work she did with apes and stuff. Stephen Hawking, because I'm mesmerized by our solar system. There's just so many things. I like to just have a tremendous amount of basic knowledge about a lot of things because I'm geeky like that, right? I think when it came right down to it, I'd love to sit down with Hugh Logan. And the reason I'd love to sit down with Hugh Logan is I'd love to ask him what his passion was to take people like my great-grandfather, my grandfather, and to have them over to dinner while they were students because they couldn't afford to eat, right? And I'd love to talk to him about, the time when he was there and my grandparents were there at college and he was there and participated in the birth of my mother, right? I'd love to find out what drove these early pioneers in chiropractic to be so human and think so far outside the box and basic. They didn't muddy it up. They didn't get too crazy about it, right? It was unsullied and clean and pristine. And I'd love to know what they were thinking when they said, you know what, we're going to do something that nobody's ever heard of. And we're going to do it in a way that attracts people to us, the right people that are going to give for the sake of giving and love for the sake of loving, and go back to some small community in upstate New York and become a thought leader for 10,000 people. That's cool stuff.
Yeah, I'm blown away with this share session today. I appreciate you opening up so much about this beautiful profession that we call chiropractic. These stories make up a tapestry of the culture of what we're doing today, and they're going to be a time capsule for documenting the profession of chiropractic from our perspective. And I think it's really powerful to get your message on this interview today. Now let's get to the edge of this. And if people wanted to learn more about what you're doing, what are your digital assets, websites, anything, social media? Where can I send people if they want to learn more about Dr. Jeff Slocum?
Yeah, I mean, look me up on Facebook. I'm not young and hip enough to be on too many platforms there, but quite frankly, shoot me an email, drjeff123 at gmail.com. That's drjeff123 at gmail.com. Jim, I just want to say this. After a lot of years of being in practice, I realized that I wasn't being true to myself in practice. So I moved to central Maine. I moved about 2 hours from my previous home, and I opened a brand new practice. And I run a practice now. I don't have any assistants. I don't have any staff. It's just me. And I practice in about 500 square feet. And I don't work with anybody that doesn't commit to a year of care with me. And the reason for that is simple, is that we can't change these structural, neurological, physiological, hardwired patterns in the body. We can't change those overnight. We can't change them with 1 adjustment, 2 adjustments, 10 adjustments. It has to be a process of the body relearning and developing new relationships that are old relationships that it lost through compensated patterns over time. And I tell you what, it's a beautiful practice. It's absolutely wonderful. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. But if anybody's out there that's practicing, that wants to learn a style of practice that is freeing, that allows you to have as much time with your family as you want, that allows you to make a really nice living and serving people at a higher level than maybe you feel like you are, reach out to me. Because I can't tell you how much I love this style of practice, Jim. It is just so much better. It's not a revolving door. People aren't coming in the front and leaving the back. They're actually staying and getting better. And it's awesome.
Well, that's what they call the big idea. And what they say is once you get the big idea, all else follows.
Yeah,
and
buddy.
sometimes it's our consistency of ourself. And we need good leaders.
Yeah.
And reach out, drjeff123 at gmail.com. And hey, man, I appreciate you being our guest today on episode 372.
Yeah, man, my pleasure. And I look forward to seeing you real soon, Jimmy.
Yeah, within the week, I'll be in Puerto Rico with you, brother.
Yeah, buddy. Can't wait. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate you, everything you're doing. I tell you what, you are making a difference in this profession. And I'll say this to you, and I'll say this to every other chiropractor out there. Regardless of where you are in your philosophy today, don't let somebody tell you you're wrong, deficient, not good enough. Okay, because that's this thing we do in chiropractic to other people, and it's absolute BS, right? So keep growing. Spend time around people that are going to lift you up and treat you fairly, that are going to support you, that are going to challenge you in healthy, consistent ways for you to grow. But don't think that because you do therapy, you're not a good chiropractor. Don't think because you take or don't take x-rays, you're deficient. Don't think because you went to this school, you didn't get the big idea. You know what? Own what you do and continue to grow so that your ownership gets bigger. But don't ever let another chiropractor beat you down, because if you do, they're the wrong chiropractors to be around.
Amen, brother. Great message today, and looking forward to seeing you soon. And if you guys are out there watching this, go ahead and hit the share button. And if you have any questions for Dr. Jeff, we got Caleb. Let's put his email address into the chat thread there. So thank you. Who do we have on today? Jenny, Denise, and Caleb comments today. Appreciate you guys. And I always like to, close out by saying you guys are just one story away. Keep hustling. And I think it's powerful. And this message of chiropractic is it's just going to evolve the way it's supposed to, like you said. And it's a beautiful profession. So I appreciate you, brother, and look forward to seeing you this weekend.
You got it, buddy.
All right. Bye
See
for
you
now.
later.
Thanks for listening to Chiro Hustle. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.